it been so far for all of you? Tiring, okay, not so okay. I can see Silvana saying good. Welcome, Silvana.
Just I'll take this opportunity to give compliment to Megha and Harshika. I think amazing host. I have attended many online sessions before, but the energy you two are sparking is like reflecting throughout, I think, even on the participants. Amazing.
Thanks, Monica. It means a lot because even we feel that online events are getting a little bit boring. Not to say that we are boring, but
But that was a promise, right? We had promised you at the start. It's not going to be just another mundane online session.
I think it is reflecting the purpose, the session theme, which we are listening so much. So I guess you people or the team which you are working with do have a purpose, and that is coming out in the work you are doing.
Thank you. Means a lot.
I think we still have a couple more minutes. If all of you want to just feel like unmuting, talking about it, we can take that time to interact a little bit more with each other. I saw Nikhil posting a comment, so thanks, Nikhil, for that. You're on mute, Nikhil.
I hope I'm audible now. Yeah, so just wanted to mention that this topic around value was always there in my mind, and I've been actually searching over the net also. And with these sessions, I think these are very powerful, almost talking about the same thing which was in my mind from quite a long time. The sessions, of course, with the examples, with the insights, they are almost touching upon those topics. So yeah, a lot of information coming out of these sessions, which I will try to now further deep dive on these topics. And yeah, some of the things I've already got, and something I will just add it, which would be again like sharing it back to the teams again. So thanks a lot, I think.
Awesome. It's always good to see that these sessions are helping us recharge and bring in the perspective that sometimes kind of get shadowed in our business as usual days, right? So it's good to hear, Nikhil, that it's making some impact. Okay, Harshika, and now I'll hand it over to you. You're talking on mute, Harshika.
Oh, am I? Sorry. Okay, I think most of us are back. So let's kick start. All right, people, I hope you were able to get enough time to stretch your legs, water breaks, bio breaks, checking up on people around, kids, managing all those things that online is helping us manage. All right, up next, our speaker is someone who has her agile journey for some 3 decades. You heard me right. You're not hallucinating. 3 decades is what she brings to the table, guys. She is someone who has been guiding organizations in agile adoption and their transformation journeys. I feel she's no less than a wizard. She has trained more than 700 people on Scrum so far. She is someone who supported Fortune 500 corporations spanning across 12 countries. She's even well versed in multiple languages. Can you believe? Is there anything you can't do, Silvana? Well, today she'll help us understand the most basic and yet the most critical questions. What is an agile organization? How to be one? Do we really need to be one? How difficult is it to be one? If you would like answers to such basic yet very important questions, let's keep our eyes opened and our ears glued and give it up for Silvana Vasitova. Silvana, thank you so much for taking time out. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Harshika. Hello. Good day, morning, afternoon, evening to you all, wherever you are. I am aware that we are in multiple time zones with the sun at different positions in the sky. I will be talking about agile transformation, which we all know is a huge topic. So within the next 30 minutes, I will cover just several aspects of that. If you have some specific questions, please write them into the chat now. I'll do my best to address that with both the material that I've already prepared and maybe free form thought sharing with other topics from past experiences. So go ahead if you have any specific questions. I will start with sharing my screen. Okay. One participant can share at a time. Awesome. So that's what I'd like to share. Are you seeing that? Not yet. Are you seeing that now? Yes? Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Now, when I go into the sharing, I won't see the chat now. So at some point, either I will come out of the chat or feel free, moderators, to read out some of the questions that come up. All right.
So, Ivana, we'll pick up the questions after you finish your presentation. So I'll keep a
Okay.
track.
Or if it's relevant to any specific topic, feel free to interject. I will manage the time from there. All right. So just to expand on what was said earlier, my experiences have been at this many companies. The 30 years, the early part was not labeled official Agile, but we had to work in Agile way within the telecom companies in Canada and so on. And so my experience was, at the beginning, it was all waterfall, including not just my PMP certification, but teaching people to get PMP certified. And then with specifically Scrum, but agility in general, and also why I now recommend Agile approaches in spite of what I've done in the past. So if you have any questions around that, I will be happy to come back to that. So today we'll talk about what is an Agile organization, why be one, how to get there. I will describe one specific change management model, which is the John Kotter model, and what it takes. And then some specific aspects, just drilling down into components of how to make it happen. Obviously, there's a lot more to be said, but we'll do our best to make the best use of the next minutes we have together. So, Agile organization. What does it actually mean? What does it look like? The topmost specific thing that I would expect from an organization that labels itself Agile is that it focuses on delivering customer value. It is focusing on the reason for that organization to exist, and hopefully that means to satisfy some need. And hopefully satisfying that need means that the organization is getting the benefit it is expecting. It could be a for-profit organization, in which case it is expecting profit. It could be non-profit, in which case it's expecting to deliver well-being for the target clientele, and also to deliver, to have channels for the people who are passionate about that topic to continue to work on that topic. So agility is not limited to for-profit only. What's the next thing we expect from an Agile organization is that it is heavily driven by feedback. And feedback is from multiple sources, multiple stakeholders. So when we talk about the customer, getting customer feedback on both the product itself, the features of the product or the services, and even on how the organization operates, the way it interacts with the target clients, the way the organization interacts internally. There is feedback. And in some of the best Agile organization, you will hear that there is quite a bit of emphasis placed on employee feedback and employee satisfaction, which is what makes the organization run well. The common saying is, happy employees create happy customers, which creates the profits that a for-profit organization is looking for. So feedback is not just like what Oana was talking about, feedback from the personas, the target customers, the persona types, but also from the employees and from each other within the organization. And in general, from any other stakeholder that the organization cares about. There is an aspect of dynamicity within the organization in a sense of responding to change. When I was at Yahoo, there were times when something would happen in the market and our product strategy needed to immediately respond to what was happening in that market for us to stay competitive with the market. Whether it was a long-term change or a medium-term change, something in the order of changing our strategy for the next 6 months, or sometimes even immediate change where we would change the ordering of the sprint backlog within a particular time frame, changing the order for this afternoon so that later today our website actually shows something different than what we had planned as a result of responding to what is happening in the market. Portfolio management needs to be a little more fluid. So not just having an annual plan, but depending on what is important to us as an organization, revise that plan at least on quarterly basis, and possibly as a result of sprint reviews, making changes to the plan of at least a specific product, specific stream, and possibly impacting a larger plan with a larger scope. Within an Agile organization, we work with cross-functional teams. One of the big differences that compared to how we used to work is that we used to have specialists and order the work after the work breakdown structure by shipping it out to specialists and then spending inordinate amount of time to bring it all together, to do the interoperability, to do the verification after each of the specialist functions finish their tasks. That was, in my waterfall experience, that was a source of a lot of frustration, so many unknowns, and so many schedule stretching that created frustrations all around. With cross-functional teams, we work on specific deliverable and getting all the skills needed to work on that deliverable and get it done. And typically, that means we get it done sooner than the traditional way. Agile organizations thrive, focus on, and encourage collaboration at all levels, encourages having T-shaped people, so not just specialists with one domain, but with understanding and ability to function in other domains using other skill sets. And Agile organizations encourage and thrive on transparency. Any comments, reactions so far?
Silvana, I think people are trying to absorb all the amazing things that they're looking at this screen, I guess.
Yeah.
People feel
This
free
is-
to drop in questions or comments.
Yeah, anyone feel free to pop in questions. I'm happy to stop and deep dive into any of the subtopics at any point. This particular slide is really the template of what it is that we're looking for. So, you know, many of you are probably already working in Agile organizations or organizations that want to be Agile, strive to be Agile. This is what I would be looking for as the final result. And So I'll go to, subsets of this next. When we talk about organizations, we also talk about the management. So contrasting traditional versus agile management, within the traditional way, there is a very set hierarchy, and it's respected. And oftentimes, it means that decisions are made at the top of hierarchy and people at the bottom are just executing. And I say just because sometimes it's not even expected that the worker level, if sometimes that's the phrase that's being used, make decisions or suggest decisions. From Agile perspective, we are very mindful that great ideas can come up at any level of the organization. And so what was previously the bottom of the hierarchy is potentially the biggest part of the organization. And imagine how many great ideas might be hidden at the bottom level of that hierarchy, right? Agile approach wants to tap into that collective intelligence, wants to tap into the ideas, into the thoughts, into the suggestions and energies of the whole organization, not just the managers. So the Agile approach to management fosters and encourages expertise sharing, building outside of what my resume says, what anybody's resume says, and encouraging that T-shape building of expertise, encourages collaboration, and most importantly, the crowdsourcing of ideas. That whole idea that manager knows best and therefore should make decisions alone is very, very outdated in Agile organization. The encouragement is let's get the ideas, let's discuss them, discuss the merits. Sometimes let's do experimentation to actually explore those ideas, validate them, get early feedback, and then make a more lasting decision. Comments, reactions?
Anna, we have a question.
Yeah.
So Ambrish is asking, can you explain the fluid portfolio management aspect?
Fluid portfolio management aspect, sure. This is actually something that many organizations experienced when COVID happened. Yes, COVID happened and many needed to respond to that. One of my clients had a culture of work on site only, and remote work was strongly discouraged. As soon as COVID happened, suddenly ways of collaborating online became a priority. Encouraging people to work online and be effective and somewhat transparent with their online work became a priority. And so in Europe, I'm based in Europe. In Europe, the COVID lockdown happened in March. And this particular client, still in January, had official pronouncements saying, we discourage working from home unless you have furniture delivery or something. We need everybody on site. That was statement in January. By March, it was like, we need to make all these online tools working properly. So that became a priority. And by April, they were able to say, with all these sudden changes to our priorities and what we had to make to get to work, so changing strategies and priorities, both at the monthly level, at the quarterly level, and at the annual level, changing portfolios, changing what we need to focus on. By April, they were able to say, actually, our workforce is as productive as before, and people are able to focus on their work and not lose so much commute time. So this was a responsiveness that was necessitated by external factors, but very often a sudden change like that is necessitated by something that's happening externally. A competitor may be coming out with a new product. Something else may be happening in the market or in the sector. In banking environment, when many banks introduced sanctions against Russia, that changed their priorities because it had to be introduced on a certain date, which was only weeks away, and many had to scramble with their changes. So Agile not only recognizes that that can happen, but introduces the mechanics to respond to that more easily and more smoothly than the traditional method. The traditional method would say, this is our plan, and a change is a huge disturbance. Agile says, oh, it's just a change. We know how to deal with that. Does that make sense? To the person asking.
It does to me, at least. Amrish, I hope she was able to answer your question.
All right. Okay. And so aside from that benefit, just in general, the benefits of Agile, and this has been documented many times, that we are better in shape to build the right product because of that frequent feedback. We usually have a better quality. We are usually quicker to in time to market. And the other upsides, and I've seen this with many customers, is we have happier stakeholders because they have visibility into the progress. They can participate in the sprint reviews and so on. And that visibility gets everyone more at ease. Quite often, the experience is more fun for people who are involved, more enjoyable. And quite often, I do see this many times over, there is an increase in productivity in a sense of we are able to deliver more than we used to. And oftentimes it means higher revenue and higher profitability. All right. And getting this right product thing, I mean, this is something that agility takes as a huge call to action, is make sure your products are right. And it means that we have to innovate, and that often means we need to take risks. And taking risks means we can't necessarily schedule it, because when we take a risk, we don't know whether that particular experiment will work or will not work. And we need to be able to respond to it if it does work, or respond to it if it doesn't work and go to plan B or C or D and so on. For example, when Toyota came out with the first hybrid car, their approach to building that battery was to have 6 teams build 6 different versions, and only after that decide which of these is the better one, and then we need to expand and build that model to become the production model that we will build thousands of cars with. So the great products, the innovation, listening to customers, getting their feedback, and doing early testing with the customers and learning what they need. Oftentimes the customer will say, oh, I want this and this and this specific way. And by closely collaborating with the customer, sometimes we can actually recommend, well, if you want, if that is your objective, that's what you want to achieve, perhaps doing it this other way can get you what you want for less effort, less development time, and lower price. Oftentimes, that kind of conversation gives the customer ideas that they would not have come up on their own. So The change model that I'll introduce at this point is what John Kotter describes in his many books, the 8-step change model. There are other models as well. I'm using the Kotter model because it feels true. Now, every model will have to be adapted to specific environment, specific organization. So there will be some flavors of the steps that will look different or will have a different feel from place to place. But as generic recommendation, these 8 steps is what's needed. And step number 1 is to create urgency. Create urgency to describe why is it that we want to change? Or as Oana described earlier, what is the purpose of what we are doing? So at the business level, what are the business either threats or opportunities? A famous company in Silicon Valley went through this with saying, if we keep doing what we are doing now, we will cease to exist as a company, because they were down to only able to do 1 release a year. And as a company, if that's all you can do, you can't satisfy your customers. So their management saw the writing on the wall and said, we can't keep doing just 1 release a year. We need to do something different. What is this Scrum thing? Let's try it out. And they did a quick change. By quick, I mean within a year, they not just introduced Scrum, but changed how they work for a majority of the development team of that organization. Within a year, 800 people. I mean, that was pretty massive undertaking, but they needed it because they needed to survive. So from the management perspective, paint the desired future. Why is it that you want to change? What do you need to do? Or why you want this organization to be different in the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, and why this change will help us get there. It is absolutely crucial that there is a good understanding to why we're making change. Otherwise, nobody likes to change. And change is expensive and change is difficult. People have set ways of working. People have their preferences. So it is very important to know why we want to change, and then go through the steps of the Kotter model, have a coalition that starts making those changes. So create the vision for the change, communicate the vision, remove obstacles to the change. This is where the work is. Create the short-term wins, and then build on the momentum from those short-term wins to finally entrench that new corporate culture. Somebody wanted to respond? Go ahead.
Silvana, we do have a question, but then just giving you a time check, we also need to wrap up in 5 minutes. Do you want to take the
Understood.
question now? Or
Yep.
do you want to conclude
for it.
and then take up the question?
Take the question. I have just one more slide.
Okay. Nirmala, do you want to unmute yourself and probably just pop your question?
So I have asked for 2 questions. One is like any suggestions on like the metrics. I mean, that is where management will look for it, like how we can say that we have transformed, the basic things to consider. And other thing, any experience you want to share, like any obstacle or roadblock you have faced and how you overcome during your agile transformation journey.
Okay, I'll respond to the second question first because I have some slides around that. So some suggestions around this. The metrics, there's many metrics that could be used, and it needs to be relevant to the organization. One of the things I would look for is, are you delivering better? are your stakeholders more satisfied? So measuring either customer satisfaction or defect rate or usage rate, those would be very standard metrics. They're not Agile specific metrics, but you can look for, does Agile introduction increase those or affect those in any way? So to come back to your question, these are the frequent challenges. You have seen these before. So company culture and management support, management involvement, these are very frequently cited topics that challenge the transformation. And so some of the things to change, so these are suggestions. One of the things that's needed is a new culture, a new way of managing. So after we do all the Agile trainings, introductions, and so on, then there's a need to create a new culture and manage differently. So these are some suggestions around different styles of management. So traditional management and Agile management, Agile coaching, Agile people coaching, encouraging deep competence in Lean and Agile, people skills, be purpose-driven, have the growth mindset. We can spend another hour talking about growth mindset, empowerment and alignment with people, focusing on people, focusing on how to handle conflict and differences in opinion in healthy way, inspiring people to action with, again, formulating what is our purpose, why are we doing this, coaching employees to perform, and so on. So these are some specific suggestions on the management side. Encourage within the development of an Agile culture. You can read this in the Agile People Manifesto, some of the things that help people connect with others, with businesses, to harness the ways of collaborating and so on. And one of the important factors that has been mentioned in some of the talks before is building psychological safety. This is a huge, huge, huge thing, especially in environments that are used to traditional way of working. So this is a description of what does it mean to create psychological safety, and you can read more about that in the book Fearless Organization. And that is the summary for today on how to help doing an Agile transformation and achieving the better ways of delivering value. Comments, questions, anything else?
Silvana, there is one more question from Aswin. He's asking any suggestions on helping the organizational leadership understand the Agile transformation.
Yes. So what has worked for me is sharing examples of what happens in other organizations. So if it's a bank, to show them other banks that have undertaken Agile transformation and the improvements they have seen in that other experience in another company. In Europe, ING is often cited as an example. And as a result of that, there are so many other banks who want to visit ING to see how they're working, what they're seeing, and so on and so on. So an example from another organization that's similar to the one that you're working with, that often helps. Some other leaders respond well to inspirational stories. So for example, CEOs and top-level managers often respond well to the story in the Turn the Ship Around example of how to change their approach to leading people. And in Turn the Ship Around, this was a nuclear carrying ship, so it was mission critical and potentially lethal environment, and yet the captain of this ship managed to change how he leads the organization, so the whole ship, and the Marines into being more collaborative and taking responsibility and pushing decision making to the bottom level, with him only doing veto on very specific commands, for example.
Silvana, there is another interesting question that's come our way. So Joe is asking if there is a boss who grew up in harsh working conditions, like say post-war situations, right? And they feel that, you know, being tough on employees is something that they are helping them with. What's your advice on dealing with a boss like that, you know, wherein they think psychological safety is not helpful, or it's even bad?
Yeah, so that if somebody thinks that, I mean, it depends on the individual, right? Because turn the ship around is exactly an example of dramatically changing from boss knows best to employee knows best approach to managing and leading. But it does depend on the leader themselves. So if they're open-minded, they would hear and consider other approaches. If they're close-minded to begin with, then it could be a question of who might be able to influence this person. So maybe not the Scrum Master, maybe not their coach, but maybe somebody that they respect could suggest the idea, right? In which case, if I were the coach or the Scrum Master working with this person, then I would look for who else, and somebody who they respect, whether it's in this organization, and maybe even somebody in this organization whom they respect, who is already doing Agile and can talk about the benefits. Because in one of my organizations, one of the best spokespersons was somebody who was skeptical, and he was a C-level manager. So he was skeptical about agility, but wanted to try it, wanted to keep an open mind. He was the director, and yet he ended up taking on temporary basis, taking a product owner role. So he could understand what do product owners need to do so that he can speak their language. He did that for 6 months. At the end of that, not only could he talk as a product owner, he could explain why we're changing priorities, and he could show the benefits of what they achieved in 6 months and why they should keep doing it and why others should do it. And he became a spokesperson only because he kept an open mind. And others who were also skeptical would listen to him because he was their peer, right? So those are some strategies to consider.
Great. Thanks so much, Silvana. I think a lot of food for our thoughts. I loved the entire presentation. There's so much to gain. And I think you were able to keep everybody awake, even during this lunchtime. Calls for the amazing session that we had. Thank you so much for taking time out on a Saturday. It was great to have you.
My
Megha,
pleasure.